talk about the second way that disciples are to pursue koinonia or fellowship. And it's through, and I've mentioned it already, take a guess, we're tightening the orbit, to life groups. You didn't all come up with that. I'm a little concerned here, but our life group, small groups, life group, we call them life groups. It's, groups of 8 to 12 people that meet 3 or 4 times a month. And beware of Nick, because he's going to get you in his group. If he sees that you're new, he's going right after you. I think they're up to 30 people in their group right now. We're going to have to do, we got to break up the Yankees, break up the Yankees. You say, why life groups? Why do we need to do this? Why do we need to break up into smaller groups? Because you receive something there that you aren't going to get in the large group. We're just too sinful and broken, and we need all the help we can get. But so think of what, in a large group, you receive the teaching, but we don't really have time here to process that teaching or to share thoughts. So what did you think about that point, or what? But in the life group, you can do that. You can receive prayer in church, and we offer prayer at the end of each service, and it's very meaningful. On that first Sunday, when we went to that church in California, after the service, I went up to pray. I didn't know the prayer team, but I needed prayer. And I went up, and I shared him our story. And after he said, "My God, what have you done?" He prayed for us, and it just felt strong. We offer prayer here, but there is nothing like the prayer you receive in a living room with other brothers and sisters who gather around you. You can share in a leisurely way and be ministered to in a powerful way. You can have real fellowship here on Sunday morning, but let's be honest, you can get lost in a crowd very easily. Slip in, slip out, but there's something about, again, being in a living room, being in a small group, sharing koinonia, sharing your hearts. I'll never forget, I just shared this story a while back, but I'll never forget in college, when I first really experienced the power of the small group, I had a flare-up of psoriasis, really bad in college. It was a skin disease, and it just flared up, and I was just one flake all over the place, and I almost ended up in the hospital, and I was ashamed about it. I was covering up, and in the small group, and this is where I met Janice. It was a great life group. Best one ever. No, but Marty was sitting across from me, and again, man, for weeks I'd just been in anguish, and Marty just piped up and he said, "Bear, what's that?" And it's psoriasis. He says, "Man, that just looks awful. Tell me about it." I did, and then somebody asked a question about it, and is it contagious? I said, No. And as I talked, tears came into my eyes a little bit, and they could tell the pain I was in, and then all of a sudden, boom, the whole group just came over. And it was the summer, and I had bare arms, and they just laid hands on me, and they deliberately laid hands on my skin and on the sores. And they prayed, and there it was, as it always is in these moments, the tears, the healing. That's what you experience in a life group. So Paul says in Acts 20:20, someone has called this the 2020 vision of the church. Paul says this, "I have not held back from declaring to you anything that was profitable and teaching you in public and from house to house." So there was a public gathering, and the early church met first in the temple, and then when they were kicked out of the temple, they found other places to gather, larger houses, fields. During times of persecution, you know where they gathered for worship? In the big cities? Under the streets, in catacombs, they called them. That's where they met for worship. So they met publicly, and then, of course, they met house to house. It's like Rick Warren says, Pastor Rick Warren, he says, a healthy church has to grow larger and smaller at the same time.